Hi everyone, welcome to Stop Trying to Make Fetch Happen. We're going to be talking today about the game of fetch and playing fetch with our dogs, whether or not that is a good game or not to play with our dogs, or ways that we could change that game to be a little bit better. And we're going to be joined today by Liza Rader from Focus Dogs. There she is. Oh, they are, sorry, so I'm going to let them in. So Liza's like the expert on this stuff. So very excited to be chatting with them.
Oh, hello.
Hi, welcome.
How's it going?
Good to see you. How are you doing today?
Good. We just had a decompression walk. We had breakfast. We are good to go.
Ready to rock and roll. Perfect. This has been much awaited. The title has made people giggle, and I think it's appropriately spicy because I don't know about you, but I have big feelings
I have
about
big, I have the biggest of feelings about it.
That's why I brought you. I was like, Liza is the one who knows the most about this. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. So if anyone doesn't know about Liza, you should immediately follow Focus Dogs. You could introduce yourself, Liza, rather than me doing it. Go ahead. Tell me a little bit
Yeah,
about you.
so I am a lifelong member of the bonkers high drive gun dog club. Lifelong Nova Scotia Dachshund Retriever person. I'm also a KPA CTP. I work almost exclusively with gun dogs. I work with a lot of hunt point retrieves, a lot of spaniels, a lot of retrievers. Not enough setters though. Give me setters, please.
We're doing an official public call out
Yeah,
for Liza. More set.
setters, please. Um,
I love that.
and
Gun dog.
because of all of this, I have really, really big feelings about fetch and arousal. So much of the work that I do focuses around behavioral wellness. And so often fetch is a thing that people are doing a lot of, and it is a thing that we stop them from doing, and then we get really great results when we stop them from doing it. But that doesn't mean that we don't throw things for the dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so what I'm hearing from you, Liza, is that you have this like specialty with these dogs who genetically might be inclined to get really into chasing and fetching games, and you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about specifically, so but not enough setters. So I have a poodle, Hera, who is similarly nutty, goes from 0 to 100, will do anything for a ball, anything for you to throw a stick, can get very big feelings, barking a lot. And I used to play a lot of fetch with him where he was like quite at me the whole time. And I think that when people hear us as dog trainers saying like we don't really love playing fetch that much, they're like, what, you never throw toys ever for the dog?
Yeah. I think it's really important to define terms
Yeah.
because so often with dog training stuff, we're all talking about a different thing and we're all having an argument, except we're all using a different definition. And so nobody's actually talking to each other. We're all talking over each other. And again, like I grew up with duck tollers, and all of the duck tollers did hunt tests and working certificate trials. So we had to have a way to differentiate between going in the backyard and throwing a tennis ball. Like we would go out with a tennis racket and like do a ton of ball stuff, and doing retriever training. And so fetch to me has always been repetitive, back and forth. Go and get the thing, bring it back, put it down. Go and get the thing, bring it back, put it down. I've also had border collies. I had an extremely ball obsessed border collie. And I think, obviously it's anecdotal, but 100% of the dogs that I've had who have played a lot of fetch in their life have had really significant arthritis in their senior years.
Yes. So we're talking about repetitive fetch. Like sometimes I go to the park and I see there's like a Vizsla in my neighborhood and the guy has one of the ball launchers and for about 40 minutes, this dog
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
foaming at the mouth, and they do that twice a day. And the dog is like pulling to the park, barking, really unable to even handle a few seconds without that ball being thrown. And I look at it now and I'm like, ooh, but a few years ago, that was me with my dog, and I didn't realize what was going
Mm-hmm.
on in that. So, like, what would be, we've talked about this a lot, like what are some of the behaviors that might be like red flags that if you were playing fetch with your dog and you were seeing, you might be like, ooh, we might want to talk about this a little bit?
The first one is, can I just walk with a ball in my hand? Like, can a ball exist within your vicinity and have you do anything other than try to get that ball?
Literally.
That's the baseline. And so many of them like physically cannot look away from a toy. So like I have a rule, like if I have retrieving items, I have a rule that if I put it under my arm, you need to go away and do something else before that ever gets re-engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And so like to the point, like they will go and pretend to pee and come running back. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Like you had to think enough about that. Like, but
able to do it. Like at least
you can do that. You can stop staring at me in order to do that. I've definitely met dogs who will like climb bookcases to get at balls and like physically can't disengage to go do other things, interact like in a normal fashion with other dogs when there's a ball around, eat food when there's a ball around.
Yeah, I would say just like summarize that in a word, like can they perform healthy behaviors around the toy? Healthy. That's like objectively good.
Yeah,
health is good.
I think so often with the dogs that get really, really, really ball obsessed, one thing I saw a lot that came up in the conversation that was happening on your page is that they're happy and excited. And I would go, okay, first of all, eustress is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
They can be under a lot of stress and be stoked about it.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs are designed to function at an extremely high arousal level. And they're probably not. The amount of times that I've worked, especially with the Hunt Point Retrieve breeds, that they appear, even to, in many cases, they've been to other professional trainers that have said, oh, they're just excited. And that dog is terrified, or that dog is so overwhelmed. This is a life or death situation for them. That is how big their feelings about their reinforcers are, and their feelings about the ability to engage in the game and continue accessing the game. So just because you think it might look like it's happy, do not assume that it is.
I love that take. And after we were talking about some of those comments saying they're just happy and excited, I sent you a video of my dog here. I can't show it now, but I'll post it tomorrow or later today. And I brought out one of the ball launching gun things, and he was standing there. I can describe him to you. He was standing on all fours, staring at me, and I had my camera out filming to send to Liza. And he was like, he had these hard eyes, very tense eyes, small and staring right in my eyes. And his eyebrows were really firmly pulled together, and he had a really tightly closed mouth, and his tail was swishing really fast and high. He was looking at me and going, throw that motherfucking ball right now. Like, that's not fun. That's not how I my friends, and that's not how he usually interacts with me. Usually he's like, hey, what's up? That's like a very deep vibe. And it's funny to me that people miss that arousal, physical response is not always correlated with good feelings. Like,
yeah, and just like, I feel like I shouldn't need to say this, but I know a wagging tail looks like happy, but it's not happy necessarily. And I know that like an open wide mouths can often look happy. A lot of, especially the gun dogs, can look very, very happy when they are actually quite distressed. And also, my gun dog, who's a nut job, thinks that it would be a great idea for him to jump off of a cliff. There's one place that we walk where at the very end of it, I have to put him on a leash, because there is a cliff there, and there's huge, dangerous drop, lethal drop, do not pass go kind of signs all over the place. But the ocean is at the bottom of that. And he's like, no, I'm just gonna go do that. I'm like, no, like, you can't do that. This is a dog who thinks that coyotes are his best friend. Like, just because he's having fun does not mean it's healthy.
Literally, that's something that happens because of genetics very frequently, right? So you work with lots of these dogs that, for folks who maybe are not super well versed in like Nova Scotia duck tolling retrievers, these are like very specifically bred to have an extremely high motivation to do certain things like retrieving, chasing, jumping in water, grabbing stuff. Similarly, our dog Ash is a sport bred staffy. So he's been bred for generations and generations to grab and bite and hold and tug and push and jump and do all these sporting activities that his family are very good at. These dogs, because of our kind of manipulation, will not behave in the way that we expect them to, right? We expect them to like not hurt themselves. But I want to talk a bit about the medical side here, because I've seen dogs continue to play fetch on broken bones. I've seen dogs continue to play fetch with arthritis. My own dog here, if I play fetch with him, he will play and then he will stop. I say play, he will perform the behavior, then he will stop and he will limp immediately afterwards. Talk to me a little bit more about this and about Percy, because I know that you had a dog with arthritis who was a fetch.
Yeah, so Percy ended up actually having a really serious back injury due to running into a fence. But he was incredibly low drive, but even he would push himself to a point of exhaustion if I didn't step in. And this is a dog who doesn't care about fetch, doesn't care about playing with toys, doesn't care about anything, but they're just access the environment and doing stuff. Like I would have to step in and go like, that's enough. I know. I can predict that by the time we get back in the car, you're going to be tired and not overtired. Because what was be happening is that he'd get back to the car and he'd be wrecked. And then his pain levels would be so high. But every time I talk about not loving fetch and moving away from using like really high impact, repetitive fetch, I start getting messages from people that don't want to talk about it publicly. Dogs that died, dogs with spinal cord injuries. Biscuit's littermate shattered his tibia playing fetch. I've had 2 times my border collie, total freak accident, almost punctured a lung just in the yard. Total freak accident. Black border collie, this happened when nobody was around. It ended up the gash was like 6 inches long, 3 inches deep.
I bet they
and after this happened, he went for his walk. That dog chased a ball for an hour. And it was only when we got home and he lay down on the ground and then got up and we're like, why is there blood on the ground? Right? No clue. Right?
You're not alone.
The only time I will like repetitively throw toys without like a lot of intervention for Biscuit is at the beach, because he's going into water, so it's that much safer. And still it looks very little like playing chuck it. But he actually, like last summer, there was an out of control fire and he burned all 4 paw pads and didn't tell anyone. I thought he was far enough away from the fire, but he got close enough and the ground was so hot that he burned all 4. His paw pads are very thick, which is a thing in his breed that we want really nice strong paw pads. He burned them down puppy soft, and all around the outside where there wasn't the callus was 2nd-degree burns.
Stay.
He continued to play at the beach, going into salt water and running on hard rocks with barnacles and everything for like an hour.
Literally, Ash is the same. The exact same. I'm convinced that he could just break a bone and not even skip a beat. Like, he'd just keep moving.
I mean, the longer you spend around really high drive dogs, the more these stories you hear. Like, I've definitely known people who've had a cattle dog come out of the field, like a working cattle dog come out of the field with a impression in his skull, like a cracked skull that had slightly started to cave in. I've had a duck toller come out of the field with a cruciate tear, brought her bird back. Biscuit's half sibling came out of the field with her bird with a dew claw completely removed and just blood like everywhere. Those bleed so much, and it was like everywhere. Brought her bird back. Like, they will work through pain because they are designed to work through pain, because people's livelihoods depended on them getting the job done.
Exactly. And for me, what that tells us is that this is a human created phenomenon. And
no wolf is doing this shit.
they're too smart for that. Like, we had to really meddle around. But what that tells me now is that we have to be really responsible about knowing what we've done and what sort of dogs we have. And even our little Shih Tzus and our little Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, they still can have this. My little Shih Tzu Obi, the same behaviors, obsessive chasing behaviors. It happens to any breed. So we've talked a lot about like physical health risks, and by the way, similarly got lots of messages like that from folks, you know, the horror stories you hear, and it makes me crazy to think that people don't believe this. But other than physical stuff, undisputable medical risks. Let's talk about the behavior stuff, because that's more contentious. There's a little bit less like...
The behavior stuff is much more contentious. And the other thing, just to link those two things together, so the one thing that I see is like, well, anything that we do with the dog is risky, right? Like they could take a wrong turn on agility course and like, you know, end their career. Yeah, totally. But we always are having to balance the risk and reward. Like my favorite thing to do when people bring that up to me and they're like, you're just bubble wrapping the dog, is show my like absolute gong show dog bailing in the middle of the field and keeping running. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, we totally bubble wrap him. But the reward of that is so much greater. So activated nervous systems are more likely to run into problems. Over arousal starts to create problems. We start to see that bleed over into other areas, things like hyperactivity, reactivity, increased fear, increased sound sensitivity, because their arousal system is so heightened. And the nature of fetch is that it never lowers their arousal system. So basically most of the jobs that dogs do are an accentuation of some point of the predation feeding sequence. They all have this, and some of them we've pulled out. Border collies, we've pulled out the stock. Pointers, we've pulled out the stock. Cattle dogs, we've really heightened that grab bite, right? Like, why does my cattle dog bite me? It heightened grab bite, right? Mm-hmm. That's how they get the job done. With retrievers, they often, unless they're in really, really high arousal, don't have a kill bite.
Yeah, like, soft mouth. Soft.
Yeah. Found a baby bunny and was like, what do with it? So what the dopamine is the highest in their system, and their arousal level is the highest at the very beginning of that sequence. What brings it down at the end is dissecting and eating the kill. So this is where we run into problems. We run into the same problem with dogs that tree bunnies tree rabbits over and over and over again, or chase bunnies. Like my friend's dog Vita staying with me today, and I had to take her out of a situation this morning because she was chasing things into high cover, and we're right next to a road, so she's on a long line. She couldn't go in and search for them. She wasn't going to catch them. Her arousal level, her frustration was starting to go through the roof. I had to take her out of that situation, give her some things, some food that she could run and catch and grab and eat and relax, right? So if I have a dog who they see the arc of movement, now in herding dogs, watching movement, they have all of this instinct to control movement, so they tend to get aroused when they see movement. That's why they want to get in there and control bikes moving. That's why they can be problematic on stairs, right? My border collies used to herd my duck tollers all the time. It was hilarious. And the sporting dogs they are designed to watch an arc of movement through the sky. Yeah. And you will see, if you watch like a field bred or sport bred gun dog, they see something fall, and like, no, we don't have monitors on them. I can't see on a screen that their adrenaline is going, but I'm also not blind. I can see my dog get taller. I can see him come forward. His ears come forward. He stiffens. He gets ready to move. His pupils dilate. Like, he is ready to move. Explosive action. That's that arousal level spiking. And then he goes and he gets the thing and he grabs it and he brings it back, and we do it again. And we do it again, and we do it again. And at no point is he sniffing, is he searching, is he dissecting, chewing, eating. All of those things lower his arousal level. At no point in a sequence of playing a chuck it game with my dog is he getting a chance to calm down. And so then we bring them home and we wonder why they're through the roof. Why are they barking at every noise outside? Why are they running zoomies around my house? Why are they stealing things? All of these kinds of problems start to happen because we didn't actually calm them down.
Yeah. And we're rehearsing getting them up, and then staying there.
And staying there, yeah.
We should be teaching nervous system regulation is essentially just a balancing act, right? So we feel our nervous system getting too activated. So for me, that would be like my heart's beating faster, maybe I'm a bit sweaty and I'm talking faster. I feel that should be an internal introspective cue for me to regulate myself back to a healthy baseline. When I feel myself getting stressed like that, what does my dog do? he will go and find something to rip up. Or
yes, and that is actually something I do with a lot of my client dogs. Is I almost I liken it to like holding onto a kite when we start with them. Because their arousal level is up here, and you really feel like you're just like hanging on, right? And we want to practice bringing them back down. And so I will manually go in, like I did with Beta this morning. I saw that she was starting to get over aroused, and she wasn't listening to cues, which is another clue that she was way far gone. And I had to take her by, shorten her leash, her long line. She was on a 30-foot long line, shortened it up, took her out of that situation, and gave her scatter, and I put that scatter right in front of her face. It was like food down.
Yes.
And the more we do that of going, now I need you to scatter. Now I need you to scatter. Yeah. The better they get at doing it themselves.
Exactly.
And now I have an absolute gong show dog. Love him dearly. He's awesome, but he is a lot.
He's a lot.
Who, when he is stressed, will go and find a chew toy.
Yes, that's what we need. We don't need them to not have big feelings, right? It's like me. I don't need big feelings. I just need to be able to cope with them in a way that's helpful. What is not helpful is playing repetitive games of these kind of high energy fetch, which literally trains the body to stay up there. It desensitizes. Almost.
Well, and I love really high impact and high arousal sports.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
And one thing that I do, again, with my client dogs, when we have these dogs, when there's an interest from the owner, and we have these dogs who have this drive and have this ability, man, they're fun when you can light them up. So once we get them down to a level that's acceptable, I've got a few dogs here right now, it's really fun. Then we start going, can I turn you on? Can I light that fire a little bit and get that drive going? And then I'm going to ask for it in this situation where it's appropriate. And then when it's done, I'm going to show you that we're done.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn to come down again. That is awesome. We don't want dogs to be deadheaded all the time.
Absolutely.
We buy these really wonderful, fun, intense dogs because they're awesome. Yeah. But we can't just wind them up and up and up and up and up. 100%. It's just not fair.
We need that balance, right? So just to clarify, I'm just going to quickly recap because my ADHD brain always needs to take it back to the kind of narrative. So we've been talking about this high arousal repetitive fetch and describing what that looks like, some of the red flags, and then we talked about some of the health risks, which are very scary and well documented, and then some of the behavior risks that we've seen, which we've discussed mainly as increased reactivity, hyperactivity, nervous system dysregulation. One of the big things that we were talking about a lot after we posted the other day, we were talking on Instagram about this, was people asking for proof around this. And this is something that I find really an interesting question. So I thought we might just touch on it real quick.
Yeah.
So a big argument that we're seeing is people saying you cannot prove that fetch causes behavior problems. So we should be allowed to play. We shouldn't be saying that fetch should be moderated or changed in any way. Liza, riff on that for me for a second. What do you think about that? Let's go.
Oh boy. Okay, so the first thing is just because we haven't yet doesn't mean we can't. To quote the wonderful Dara O'Brien, science doesn't know everything, because if it did, it would stop. So right now, do we have a study that we can go specifically repetitive high impact fetch like we see with a chuck it toy or with a ball and a rope played in without cover? So cover, when we talk about cover in the dog world, we're talking about how tall the grass is, what sort of barriers there are there. Very little cover and that repetition. We don't have a study that specific thing is causing these problems. However, we do have a lot of information on how arousal level affects behavior. We have a lot of information about how sudden impact affects physical health. And we have a lot of information that is from learned experience from experts about how and when we change these things, the results that we get. Is that a study? No. But hard science is not the only knowledge. And it is so deeply problematic to assume that it is, right? erases, that is a tactic that is used to erase women's knowledge. That is the tactic that is used to erase the knowledge of indigenous cultures all over the world. It's not an okay argument to bring up, even when we do exist in such an unregulated industry.
Literally. But it's also
you can,
funny thing, like a misunderstanding of studies and science, and insofar as we don't have to have well, actually, first of all, can we just pause and everybody just clap that for a second? Because that's like, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally. I literally wanted to do this whole live just so I could ask Liza that question. Oh, like, Liza, does a white man in a lab coat need to prove it for it to be true? Can you tell us, please? Fantastic answer, so true. And just also shows just like a weaponization of like science and proof and this kind of.
That was the part that for me really rankled, was not, hey, is there a study that shows us, hey, can you point to your sources for this? It was, prove it.
Prove it. Prove it.
And I gotta say, I kind of understand why balance trainers don't like us.
Oh yeah.
Because that's aversive. That is using an aversive to teach. We don't do that. That's the thing that we all say that we do not do. So if we go in and we demand sources in a way that is really confrontational, guess what? We're a social species. Social rejection is an aversive tool. And if you are using it on purpose, you are not a force-free doctriner.
100%. Thank you, everybody. Fire emoji, clicks, snaps, everything. The whole live was just for that one moment. Thank you, Liza. We can now continue.
Okay, I'm done for the day. I'm gonna go. Bye.
This is just such a funny phenomenon. But I feel like we probably backed up our argument pretty well at this point. And some people watching this might be like, okay, so maybe Fetch, the way I've been playing it hasn't been the best for my dog. Hey guys, I was there. Changing our minds and changing our behavior is hard. I am pretty sure I have exacerbated my dog's arthritis by playing lots of repetitive fetch on slippy surfaces when he was a puppy.
That is a big one. Slippy surfaces, man.
So let's talk to people about, first of all, how we can moderate fetch, and then we can talk about completely different games that might meet the needs that we're trying to fulfill. So let's talk about like 3, just to keep it not too overwhelming for folks, 3 of our favorite moderations that we can make, 3 different things that they could do. Otherwise we'll be here for like literally months being like, we could try this, we could do this, we could do this. So I'm going to give us 3. Let's go.
So, the first one is to put parameters and framework around this. So what I did, I took traditional gun dog training and I made it into a fun game for pet owners. So I made retriever games, which is literally just like working certificate, which is like the easiest level of retriever training, for pet owners, instead of trying to do it to like the standard that we needed in tests and stuff like that, where there's a million and one ways we can kind of start to play with that game. And there's a couple of parts that are really important about it. The first one is there are questions that are being asked throughout the game. So if the vault does not arrive in my hand, and I've clicker trained a retrieve to hand, so I know that you know this skill, and I know that this is a reinforcement-based skill for you that you want to work towards, that you understand will gain you reinforcement. Yeah. If the ball does not arrive in my hand, I'm sorry, we cannot continue to play. Okay. If you cannot disengage and go pee when I ask you to in between, or go sniff something, or eat a food, I'm so sorry, we cannot continue playing the game. If you do not then get into heel and wait for me to throw the toy, I'm so sorry, we cannot continue to play the game. So we have all of these checks throughout the process of the game to go, hey, how's your arousal level? Because what I'll get all the time, I wish I had a better toy here. Should have grabbed a ball. I will get the toy doing this.
Okay.
Past my hand.
Oh yes, I've been there.
I'll try to find this video and I'll share it on my Instagram stories after this, but I have a great video of Biscuit at the beach, actually, which again is the only place where I really will repetitively throw a toy. And he's with my dad, and he does this, he brings the toy up and he does this with it. And I went, oh, that's a no. We'll take it as a no. You'll never guess why he didn't do this. He had to pee. Oh. And he couldn't do that with his toy in his mouth because he was too excited about the toy, and he couldn't give back the toy because if the toy is in play, then he cannot go pee.
Absolutely not.
asked the question, hey, can you put the toy in my hand? And he was like, no, I can't. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it was so cute. He tried. He was like, no, I can't. He goes and pees and comes back, ask again. It goes right in the hand. Solid. He targets that hand, pushes the toy into it, and goes, yeah, I'm ready.
Nice, nice.
We ask the question. The other thing that I will do is I try to always throw into cover. So always throwing into something where they can't see it as they're moving. They have to look where it goes. So we have them sit because we have these rules. I'm going to throw that toy into a bush or into some taller grass or something like that, or maybe over something, behind something, into some water where they can't actually see where it is. And I make sure they're looking, and then I release them to go get it. The other thing, I've got a handle on their leash or on their harness or something like that. If they can't sit and wait to be released, they also still can't continue to play the game. I'm going to get the toy now. This is my job.
Yeah. The amount
so I release them, they run, and then they have a second. The head comes down. The nose starts. They're air scenting or they're on the ground sniffing, and they can find it, and they grab it, and they come back. And then again, then we go into the next part of the system. Can you put it on my hand? Or if I ask you to, can you put it on the ground? I have also how to put it on the ground cue after having a duck toller who found a rotting dead duck and would not put it down because she's like, nope, I only get reinforcement if I put it in your hand. So now I've also taught a put it on the ground cue for emergencies. Don't buy a gun dog if you are like a neat freak or squeamish.
Don't
because they do.
Dog if you're a neat squeamish, I gotta say, any of those high drive dogs. So far,
No.
so we've got this first idea of like boundaries, which in and of itself is like, we could just dive it. And just to go back and just reiterate what Liza said, Liza actually has a webinar series. Is it a webinar or is it a course?
It's just one. It's one webinar. There is another one coming out soon, which we'll talk about later.
That's so exciting. I've watched the first one many times and done it with my dog. Definitely click through to Focus Dogs, have a look at the webinar for like a lot more detail, but I think the framework that Liza's offering here is so helpful. So like boundaries, you need to be able to deliver the ball in a certain way. So delivering the ball is a question. How are you doing? And they can say great or I'm crazy, you know what, they can say one or the other.
And how fast do they do it? So one thing Biscuit will do when he's not ready, when he's done, is he will come out of the water or come back with a thing and he will go over there.
Ooh.
And then he'll come back to me.
He'll take a minute because he knows.
I've just decided that means we're done.
I see. Okay, so you're basically asking these questions. We need to deliver the ball well. They need to be able to take a break to sniff. So for guardians, this could be like you might want them to drop the ball at your feet and they need to eat a few pieces of chicken or healthy treat before you then ask them for a behavior and they're able to offer it. And then we can do it as long as they can. If they can't wait while it's thrown, something I often do is I go and hide the toy somewhere. Does that count?
Yeah, totally. That's like even better. Then you're not getting that spike of excitement when you see it be thrown. And then the other one to do is to put it on cue. So just like I would have a click or a yes or whatever. Hi, I did say words that mean food. I'm sorry.
He's like, you're lying.
Fine, I'll feed you. Okay, fine. All of these cues will tell my dog that food is about to happen. Now, I can use exactly this in the exact same way a cue to chase the ball. Now, my dog has more than one because we are nerds, but you only really need like one that means like I'm about to throw the toy. And you use it in the place of a click. So instead of click, I just say free, which is a free throw. I also, another one I use is ball. And you could ask for a down and have your criteria for down. My dog's criteria for down is that his sternum touches the ground for 3 seconds because he hovercrafts.
Oh, yeah.
So sternum on the ground for 3 seconds, and then I go free and throw the toy. So you can do that as well. And then you're looking, again, not just can my dog do the behavior, like does my dog go into a down? Does my dog squeak when they go into a down? Do they go into a down and hovercraft? Do they go into a down and then get up again? Do they back up, sit down, twirl, and then down? Like, what are you giving me? Is that, like, if you've given me a lovely down 3 times in a row and then you squeal at me,
what is that?
What's different, right? If I ask for a down and you can do it, and then a dog walks past and I ask for a down and you can't do it, what's different? So we're asking the question, and then you can teach them by really specifically marking behavior how to access the toy in a way that isn't just flying through the roof.
100% like root of it here, you're saying you're creating a framework for them to access the joy, fetch, and like enjoy the game, get that need met, but within a framework so that they are not able to become dysregulated and then have all of the behaviors associated with that massively reinforced because you're playing the game. Makes so much sense. Have to say, as someone who had built a dog that was very dysregulated around balls and still can be, to be perfectly honest, I started and it looked nothing like that. It looked like I'd roll the ball a few feet and then give them some food just to eat, and then roll the ball a few feet and then eat. Just, can you eat? Like, can you just eat around the ball?
I start all of these skills on food.
Yeah.
Can I throw a meatball into the bush and then can you go find that meatball? So sometimes I'll get people who are like, I want to do retriever games, my dog doesn't play fetch. I'm like, that's phenomenal. This is the opposite of a problem. Do it with a meatball, do it with a hunk of cheese or something like that. You can do all of these games can be played with food, and it's going to be better for your dog's brain, and it's going to be easier on their body.
Right, the food, because they get to satiate, and that's
chew, swallow. And it also really does encourage them to use their nose because they're sniffing. It's a lot smaller than a toy. It's not a bright color. It doesn't look all that. It's a more natural texture, so it blends in with the grass more, and it has more of an odor. So it's a great way to start teaching them to sniff out their toys, is by, instead of doing it with a ball first, do it with food first. And I teach that sitting and waiting for food to be thrown, I shape it with food before I ever bring in a toy, because the toys are harder and you have less control over a toy.
100%. That makes so much sense. So much sense. And I'm thinking back to, like, before I even really understood what I was doing, when I wanted to try and calm Hero down when playing fetch, would play a little bit and then I'd like tug a bit with him and then I'd give him the toy and he'd shred it up and then maybe would eat some food. And I'm realizing we were doing was we were activating that system and then we were satiating and completing the sequence.
I want to come back to that in a second because we just got a really good question, but I just discovered something really cool, so we have to come back to that. So we just got a question: does that teach them to eat random things that are on the ground? They're scavengers. They already know how to do.
No, I love that question.
They're scavengers. They're good at everything.
They know how, and what will teach them to eat random stuff off the floor is letting them eat random stuff off the floor, right? You're asking that letting them eat very specific things off the floor that you are specifically for them to eat. Very different scenarios. Your dogs can understand the difference, but if you do want your dog to not eat things off the floor, we're going to have to come up with kind of separate plan for that. Like, that's a different thing.
Yeah. And it's also, I've also had a number of dogs work with me who are real serious scavengers, and the scavenging came from not having their needs met. And so when we increased their ability to access hunting, searching, scavenging type games, they weren't eating every.
Oh, I lost you for 1 second, but that might have been my Wi-Fi. Let's see if I'm back. Oh. I think we're back. Folks in the comments, just let me know if you can still see me.
Sure. Yeah.
We're back. It was a short break.
Yeah, go on.
What I would scavenging. Yes, scavenging. So what I've even noticed is that with my dog, I taught him to leave things in the environment through playing these games, because he was like, "Fuck that hot dog. Where's the meatball? Where's the ball?" Like, the game was so rewarding to him, the retrieving games and like the moderated fetch was, that it was actually a really useful learning tool. And that's actually another thing that folks were concerned about when we were recommending moving away from traditional fetch, is how will I control my dog? They are obsessed with this toy. And I'm like, you can have that. You're not going to lose that. You will still have the interest and the enthusiasm and the engagement. It'll just be not coupled with the fallout, which is that nervous system dysregulation, right?
Also, a lot of these questions that I see, I wonder how compulsive we are being with the reinforcer. So the dog has life or death feelings, my dog, again, will do dumb stuff to access food. I work with a lot of dogs who just feel so strongly about their reinforcers. So here's the thing. A lot of these breeds are bred by people who use heavy compulsion. You can use heavy compulsion on them and they will still be operating in a positive reinforcement contingency because they are working towards the reinforcement of access to the game. They will do things that hurt them and that scare them to access the game.
So much.
So just because they can focus on the toy does not mean that they feel safe in that environment. And that's really what we need to be paying attention to. Now, sometimes that can be a really excellent tool, but it needs to be a taught tool. They need to know how to access that reinforcer. They need to be able to be calm around that reinforcer so they are in a regulated nervous system so that we can see that we have evidence that my dog is actually still regulated when I'm asking them to go in this environment. Mm-hmm. And you described Hira going like, throw the ball, 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 throw the ball. Frustration is an aversive.
He can't.
If they're going, how do I get the toy? How do I get the toy? That's an aversive experience because they are frustrated. And again, we don't use aversive to teach. So unless these other frameworks are in place, it is really risky. Let's put it that way. It's really risky to push the dog too hard, too fast. And these guys tend to not tell us until we've already made the mistake.
Literally, we have to create framework. Unlike fetch, which is like a very one-sided conversation, we just go, get it, get it, get it, get it, over and over again. We never check in with them. How you doing, buddy? How's it going? We create like a more complex conversation around that so that you can keep them safe, because that's our job, right? Our job is to keep them safe and make them happy. And I love this idea of like, with certain breeds who are bred to be a certain way, but not just certain breeds. I also think that this is something to be said about like anxious dogs and dogs who maybe have a lot of who have a need for control, who feel a need for control because they have a lack of safety in their environment or in their life, or they haven't got their needs met in other ways. I think they're also more likely to become more obsessive or more compulsive about the way that they will need the access to this reinforcer because their life doesn't feel so great a lot of the time. And come on, who does not identify with that every now and again? We've all been a bit like, you know, gone through a breakup and we're like, I need that chocolate, cigarette, hookup, whatever.
Yeah. We all lived through COVID, guys. We've all been there.
Come on, it makes sense. But then we bring into play the fact that we've messed with their genetics as well. And it's almost like coercion through genetic manipulation that we have to be aware of.
It so can be. So we got a question. I lost it. 1 second. Where'd it go? There it is. I have a reactive anxious BC. I've recently reintroduced Frisbee in small amounts and walks. And he only gets to play if he can drop follow cues. But should I stop playing completely? I don't know. I'm not your dog trainer, so I can't tell you.
Perfect answer. And we can never give specific advice about any dogs at all. And this is why you want to be speaking to a professional. If you are using like dangerous things or things that have more risks associated, you want to be speaking to a professional. Check your dog's physiology, make sure that it's all good. Some things that I will say is that I prefer a Frisbee to some other things. Has more hang time, which I prefer to like.
They don't bounce.
They don't bounce. They don't do that prey like dink 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 thing that gets them really like pumped before that bite. And it's good that you're introducing some of these things, but you're going to need to speak to a professional to know the details of this.
Really like a clear answer, yeah. Because it's so complicated. It's so complicated.
Yeah, take some videos of yourself playing Frisbee with your dog. Watch it back. Re-watch it, listen to this live, and then watch that video and see like, what's the conversation we're having right now?
The other thing that can happen, so like the other one that I am very cautious with it for very similar reason is dog parks, right? And again, something that can be an excellent tool for certain people and also something that can really, really shoot you in the foot, right? So the amount of times that we've had a dog stop going to daycare, work through BMOD stuff, or stop going to dog park, work through a bunch of BMOD stuff, and then life happens and like the kid comes home sick from school and there's a work crisis and we're like, we can't make it to the decompression spot. We're just going to go to the dog park. And lo and behold, for the next 2 days, the dog is barking at literally every noise ever. So you can also just ask the dog. I do a lot of asking the dog. The dog knows. right? The dog's the expert. So we do a lot of trying things of, can I reintroduce some toy play with my dog in this style of toy play with my dog? And I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to see what they're like. I'm going to play it one day and see how that plays out over the next few days after that. And then I'm going to try it a little bit more. And I might play it, and I might notice a pattern, because I've been keeping notes. I notice a pattern that every single time I do this for the next 2 days, yeah, he is a little bit more reactive.
Literally.
Or I might not. Might be fine.
Yeah, that's it. It's not everyone, and that's why we don't know. If you ask us specific questions, we can't tell you the answer. You've got to look at the specifics. It's really funny you mentioned that. I literally did that with Hero with the ball launcher. I was like, let's see what happens, and I brought it back. He immediately became so pissed off with me, was so unhappy. I honestly was like, don't look at me like that. That's not nice. And then was every time I stood up, he would, is it going to happen again? Is it going to happen again? And I could see pupils dilate when I stood up. One time I hadn't brought this ball. I'd forgotten I've had it for like a year. And I brought it out, and he, like, there are some things that they can't handle, and that's okay. Like, like that's fine. Like, they don't like, I was just like, oh, okay, well then, no thank you. Back it goes.
Yeah, so I think we have some questions about what else, like, what can I do? Yeah, let's say this doesn't work. What else can I do?
Well, so we'll have to stay an hour, because otherwise we'll lose this video, and I want to save it. So let's do the what else can we do question, and then finish up just a few minutes before the hour to make sure we save it. Sound good?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
So the first thing that I like to do is just play with your dog. Like, you don't need a toy, you don't need a game, you don't need a contrived thing. Get on the ground and play with your dog. And just get the boop them and to boo and let them tell you how like to play. So I've worked with a number of dogs. I know I've got a couple of them on Instagram here who felt so much pressure around retrieving, and so much that they were avoiding any kind of retrieving training, and they were really shutting down. And what we realized is that they were guarding their toys by not engaging with the game. Mm-hmm. And what resolved this was getting on the ground and going, oh my God, do you have a toy? Did you get it all by yourself? Wow, you're so smart. Well, you're so clever. What do you have, right? Just play with them. There doesn't have to be a game that someone has written down. Be creative, have fun, play with your dog.
Yes.
Around and be silly, right?
I love that. Just get rid of the toys, be silly with them. Look up videos of people playing wrestling with their dogs and playing if you need to learn. I don't know, I'm very autistic like that. I'm like, I need to see a script. So have a look. Amy Cook. Look up Dr.
Amy Cook, the GOAT of play. As Amy says, play is magic. So if you can start to play with your, oh my God, beautiful. The other thing is, so there are times when we use fetch. I know I have done this in the past with other dogs. There are times when we use fetch because we have to go to work. We only have so much time in the day. We all live under late stage capitalism. And we just like, I have 20 minutes and I need to burn this dog out a little bit so that he's not miserable when I go home, when I leave the home. And for that, the answer is nose work. The answer for that is scent work. Get them using their brain and thinking and problem solving and setting up frameworks. Doing something, the other one that I love, well, honestly, it's any sport. I cannot stress this enough. Teaching obedience with Hannah Brannigan's book, Awesome Obedience, for one very simple reason. Well, first of all, it's excellent training, and you're not, like, in no way, Hannah's never going to lead you wrong, right? Excellent dog training. But it lays out every single step of what you do. Yeah. You never have to go, how do I train this? What do I train next? What's the next part of this? Which is half of the battle with dog training, is thinking of how to keep moving forward. And the process of learning is so important for that, keeping them mentally well. And then lastly, just go for a decompression walk.
Literally, okay, listen, the funniest thing here is that your three other things, we've asked Liza, what other things can we do with our dogs other than playing fetch? You've gone play, you've gone sniff, what was the middle one?
Like training skills.
So yeah, play, learn, and sniff. Play, learn, and sniff. Very normal, and healthy.
Move your body.
That's just a dog. What are dogs meant to do? Play, learn, sniff. Yeah. Scavenge.
And then if you want to be more precise with your enrichment, look at original purpose. What were they designed to do? That's going to be the thing that's most enriching for them.
Yes.
Right? I have retrievers. The thing that is most enriching for them is doing some retriever training, even if that's just like a fun pet dog version of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we don't have to go to the Olympics. I have everyone who doesn't really isn't super into like dog sports. Liza's like the hunting games Olympics kind of vibe. We're like couch potatoes over here at CCA. We're like, we're just gonna like play some sniff games in the blanket in the bedroom. But Liza's the real deal. You don't have to be great at it though. You can be. I'm rubbish. You can be rubbish like me.
Yeah. There's no one following me around with a clipboard.
Literally, just have fun and sniff, play, and learn instead of repetitively chasing over and over and over, like that variation piece, which I love so much. And the more that we practice sniffing and problem solving and playing, the more likely they are to choose those behaviors to regulate themselves in the future, like your pup's going to find a chew toy when they're really aroused or something like that. Hero now will walk and sniff in a way that he never used to do before. He would and now when he's stressed, he goes, his nose goes to the ground and he moves. And when I'm stressed, I go, we're all getting our skills. But it's so cool to see that you don't have to be doing like obedience drills necessarily to perform behavior change. You can change the activities that you're giving your dogs and see integrative change.
It can be so fun.
Yeah. It's so fun.
If it's hard, we're doing it wrong.
Literally.
Like if it's hard, like in the moment, if it's difficult, we can change something to make it easier.
And you know what that might mean? It might mean lowering your expectations. For me, that was a big thing. I used to want Hero to be amazing, and actually when we first started working, it was like, okay, I hold the ball and we feed you, and then that's the end of the game. And I was like, well, this sucks. I'm a professional dog trainer and this is not sexy at all.
No. And also sometimes, a lot of the time, it's lowering our expectations for ourselves. Right? I'm like, it is not wasted time to find a cemetery and put the dog on a 30-foot long line and listen to a podcast while you stroll around. That's not wasted time. I find myself, when I work with people, I work with them 5 days a week. And so people who tend to work with me tend to be like pretty driven. Mm-hmm. They really want to, we have a problem that we really want to solve. And there's a lovely point that we get to with all these dogs where the amount of work that needs to be done has drastically decreased, and the dogs have chilled out a lot. And then I get to go like, okay, you can stop trying so hard.
Yes.
Like, I think, yeah, like your homework is to go get a coffee. Your homework is to go like have a night out with your partner. It's to go do something without the dog. Like you don't have to try so hard.
Yes. I literally love that. I think a lot of people in the CCA community are like that as well. Like, we have a lot of like anxious overachievers. Don't know why. Not like I attract that type at all.
Right.
Like, it's a real problem sometimes that we have to just go, oh, okay, so actually it's more fun for you to just do this actually quite boring thing for me, and at the end you actually are better. That's what helps for me, is that you start to see their behavior trend in a way, and they see them be more comfortable and soften, and then I start to go, oh damn, okay, we're onto something here.
And then when they do want to engage with you, when we go, yeah, you can totally, we're gonna go stroll around this graveyard, and then when they show up to do dog training and they're like, oh my god, hi, would you like to do the thing? I would love to do the thing with you. Oh my god, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is so beautiful, and it's like truly giving them choice. It's like, we will meet all your needs, and then you get to actually choose whether or not you engage with us in this way, and then it's the least coercive, which will lead to the least amount of like cognitive dissonance and internal conflict for them and for us. Mm-hmm. Everyone will be happier. So stop trying to make fetch happen, guys. Make it cooler, like Liza does. All right.
Play with your dog.
Don't tell people on the internet to prove stuff. Community wisdom.
Yeah. And if you do, sneak peek, if you do have a ball-obsessed dog, Adam Scandarani and I are going to be doing a double header in September, so stay tuned.
I didn't know that.
Because we're going to be talking about Ball is Life.
Oh my god, yes!
Which I've been promising for like 2 years, but it is actually happening.
Liza, I'm literally going to be there front row doing it because I need it. Like, I'm like, me and Hero are not there yet. That's so exciting. And everyone follow Liza if you haven't already, and click through to look at their webinar, because it's really, really good, one that I've used many times. And there's Adam as well. Hi, a flash of brilliance, and excited to see that later in the year. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining. We're going to finish up and save this so you can send it to any of your friends who have fetch fanatics and spread the good word about adjustments that we can make. And Liza, thank you so much. Your like expertise is just like baffling to me. I love it. It's like so outside of the area that I usually work with, like the high drive sporty vibes, and I just think it's so cool to see someone in that area doing such great welfare work. So thank you.
Lovely. Thanks for everybody for asking all the questions.
Yes, thank you.
The best, my favorite topics. I'm like, I'll just gush about it forever. It's fine.
It's a fun talk. All right. I will see you soon. Thank you, Liza. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.